Monday, September 21st, 2015. This time I'd ask that everyone please turn off all cell phones or put them on vibrate or any other electronic device that may interrupt the proceedings for this evening's meeting. Will everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just so everyone is familiar with the proceedings for the public hearing, each speaker will be given 3 minutes to speak. As your time begins to wind down, there's a flashing light on the microphone, which indicates that it's time to wrap up your testimony. As soon as your 3 minutes is over, your time is up. Speakers who arrive late at the public hearing will be given the opportunity to speak their testimony after all speaker names have been announced. This evening's public hearing will be moderated by Erica Fairbree-Jones. In order to better accommodate all speakers, we've located the microphone and podium at the center steps, and be well aware that it does amplify your voice adequately, so you don't have to bend down to the microphone, that if you are taller, just push it in a further upright position. It will pick up your voice. Ms. Jones will call speakers one at a time. We ask that when your name is called that you please go out into the hall and take your place at the speaker's podium where the center doors are located. When it is your time to speak, a staff member will come up to you at the podium to obtain copies of your testimony. Ms. Jones, would you please proceed in calling our first speakers?
Thank you so much, Mr. Sumter. Our first three speakers for this evening is number 1, Mandy Simmons, number 2, Marta Nutini, and number 3, Larry Ehrlich.
It's September, the beginning of a new school year. But at Minadeo Elementary, it's the same old story. As the school year begins, we learn that in several grades, enrollment is lower than anticipated, and that those grades are under the threat of classroom closure as part of the district's policy of leveling. What? Again? Let me remind you of some history. September 2014, Minadeo parents expressed concern about the possibility of classroom closures due to low enrollments. October 1, 2014, Assistant Superintendent Alison Hughley meets with Minadeo parents about the issue. She informs us that the board has made a principled decision not to carry out leveling in grades K through 2 because of their understanding of the negative effects of this practice. October 6, 2014, parents of Minadeo first graders receive a letter from our principal informing us that a first grade classroom will, after all, be closed in 3 days' time. October 7, 2014. Drs. Sims and Hughley come to Minadeo to meet with parents. They are unresponsive to our arguments made against their decision, but they once again voice the district's commitment to change the policy, conceding that removal of teachers after the beginning of the school year harms students, schools, and teachers. So how are we here again? It cannot be that you do not accept the arguments that leveling is a bad policy, because you yourselves have already acknowledged that it is a bad policy. I'm here today to remind you of the commitment that you have already made to end it. It's also time for you to begin to think about why enrollment at Minadeo is in decline. I suspect that there are multiple factors, but I'm also sure that leveling is one of them. Minadeo has been impacted by this policy repeatedly in the last 7 years. Parents see over and over again the negative academic and disciplinary outcomes of classroom shifts and of the overcrowded classrooms that result because, as we've repeatedly seen, class sizes continue to grow after leveling. Parents know that this instability is bad for their children, and so they go elsewhere. We are stuck in a cycle of declining enrollments, leveling, and yet more declining enrollments. Minadeo has gone from being one of the district's star schools to being a school of last resort, especially for children in the immediate neighborhood. Every Minadeo parent sitting in this room, and there are quite a number of us here tonight, can tell you about neighbors who have pulled their children out of Minadeo to send them to ECS or to Greenfield or to private schools. It's time for the school board to recognize that declining enrollment at Minadeo is a district problem. As a first step to solving it, you should stop the policy of leveling, as you have already promised to do.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Number 2, Marta Nutini.
Good evening. My name is Marta Nutini, and I would like to bring to your attention a few early childhood education issues that I experienced this year. I have 2 sons that attend Minadeo, a school I'm very fond of and supportive of. I'm very pleased with the education and loving care that my sons have gotten. So I'm very involved and have had 4 years of experience with early education at the school. However, I'm concerned about poor communication from the Early Childhood Education Office, written, electronics, or otherwise, concerning placement into preschool. First, I was made aware of those problems because of my position as the parent community chairperson. Because my contact information was available to them, many parents contacted me 2 weeks prior to school starting, trying to find out the status of their children's placement. These parents had tried to contact the main office, but no one was returning phone calls or emails. I myself called several times with no luck. Based on my 4 years of experience at Minadeo and conversation with other parents, letters of acceptance are not sent until 1 week before the start of school. In other words, parents do not know if their child had been accepted or denied until it's too late to look for another placement. How is this fair or appropriate? Second, the information provided in the acceptance letters is minimal and not good enough. It only mentions that the child has been accepted, placement into Minadeo 1, 2, or 3, the school address and orientation time and date. It should also include location or classrooms and who will be teaching the class. New families will feel like they're in the dark. These new parents could be leaving their child alone at school for the first time and have no idea what are they doing or where they're going. These parents need to feel secure, not confused. On behalf of preschool parents in this situation, I ask that you do something about it. Thank you so much for your attention. Good night.
Thank you so much. Speaker number 3, Lawrence Ehrlich.
Good evening. My name is Larry Ehrlich, and I'm chairman of Northside Leadership's Education Committee. I come here tonight, as do most of the people in the audience, not as your best friend, but really as your only friend. Unlike those who don't attend these meetings, we want Pittsburgh Public to succeed. I frequently hear my neighbors on the north side ask, when will AGH take over Martin Luther King, or when will Old North Catholic become a charter school? The mayor of our fair city last year asked the director of the environmental charter school when she intends to open a new environmental charter high school. Our committee, on the other hand, worked with the aid of the Buell Foundation to provide every Northside second grader with 5 experiences at the aviary and all first graders with a similar opportunity at the Children's Museum. We have worked with the help of Calvary United Methodist to have tutoring programs at both Manchester and Morrow Elementary School. We have contacted Carnegie Science Center, who indicated an interest in a similar experience for 4th graders, and the Park Conservancy is considering a program for the 3rd graders. Unfortunately, these organizations, as well as Manchester Craftsman, City of Asylum, Mattress Factory, and the War Hall, have all indicated the difficulty in working with Pittsburgh Public. They say it is far easier to develop programs with charter and suburban school districts. The citizens in Brighton Heights have worked hard and long to create a kaboom playground for the children at Morrow. Unfortunately, they have likewise received minimal assistance. This facility will be on your property and for your students, yet you refuse to help pay for part of the insurance. 3 years ago, this administration created the new Perry High School from 2 troubled schools, Perry and Oliver. Since then, Perry has had 3 administrators and has lost over a third of the school population. In addition, programs at Perry have been cut, biotech magnet, for example, and free field trips were denied Perry students, though other Pittsburgh school students were able to attend them. Unless the district recognizes the need to support all neighborhood schools, making them creative, competitive, and desirable, only 50% of Northside families now send their children to Northside Public Schools. We will be unable to stop the continued hemorrhaging of students out of our district. Merely providing East End magnets and the Pittsburgh Promise are not the solutions we need. If we don't support our local schools, I'm afraid that Pittsburgh will become the next New Orleans, where only 5% of the children go to public schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Our next 3 speakers will be number 4, Ms. Leanne Listing, number 5, Jane Sistrick, and number 6, Mr. Floyd McCray.
Be courageous. This week, you can make one small decision that will send us on a course toward excellence. Keep our teachers in our classrooms this year. I, and you will hear others tonight, am very concerned about attendance levels in our Minadeo classrooms and the potential that that will drive similar actions as in previous years. We are aware that our kindergarten, first, and second grades have low enrollment numbers. If you do not act with courage, we know what will happen because it happens every year. We know that many classrooms will be impacted, not just those that may be combined, but it will ripple through the entire school schedule. We know that more students will come to Minadeo later in the year, and the numbers will go up, often to nearly unmanageable levels, requiring the addition of staff later in the year. We know students will suffer setbacks as they must learn new routines and bond with new teachers. We know parents that have invested in getting to know a teacher will find this to be the last straw and will leave the school and the district. The pattern has occurred year after year. This year, let's not do the same thing and expect a different result. Instead, I challenge you to act with courage and point us toward the path to excellence. It is easy and logical to explain to parents like me why teachers may be required to move to another school based on budget constraints or if this is the leveling policy. The leveling of teachers across the district schools is not the same as leveling machinists on a shop floor. I'm a parent of 2 students at Minadeo. I'm also the manager of a group of project and systems engineers at a local company. My employees have similar titles, but they are nominally qualified to do the same things. However, they are not interchangeable. Many have built strong relationships with customers and their engineering teams. They have specialized knowledge. Changing out people mid-project has a direct impact on our project success rates. Too many changes can actually lead to failure. Think about it. If relationships and stability matter in the adult engineering world, isn't it apparent that they will matter even more in our schools, where children and families are the ones impacted? At Minadeo, we have many students of great need who have tumultuous lives. Before students can learn, they must feel safe. Last year, we were optimistic to hear there would be no removal of teachers in K through 2, but it didn't happen. This year, I urge you to have the courage to make that good idea a reality. Pittsburgh is a place of innovation and tenacity, and I'm confident that the administration, board members, teachers, parents, and community leaders can overcome any obstacles. Keep our teachers where they are. This is one small but courageous act that can make a big difference. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Speaker number 5, Ms. Seastrick.
Hi, my name's Jane Sestrick, and I'm here to talk about science options at Perry High School. As I definitely support what Larry Ehrlich has told you about the Northside schools, about how the Northside Leadership Conference is working towards greater opportunities for students across the Northside. but I want to talk specifically tonight about Perry. The biotech program at Perry is a really beneficial program. It has a ripple effect and profits many, many students. And students that are in the biotech program are in a wide variety of extracurricular activities over the past 10 years. These same students have performed in musicals and played sports. This past spring, biotech students sang in the school musical. Biotech students have enjoyed girls and boys basketball and wrestling. Students with older brothers and sisters have followed siblings into the program. The biotech program at Perry has prepared students for postgraduate studies and careers in science and engineering. In fact, one former student tells her story on the Pittsburgh Promise website. She studied bioengineering at Penn State, and another biotech student starts college this fall with a $20,000 scholarship over 4 years. It's a program that involves students in long-term growth and fosters a career path of their choice. In addition to being a 21st century STEM program, the biotech program is really aligned with the district goals. It fosters innovation, it eliminates racial disparity, it increases student achievement, it improves the culture of our schools. As it fosters innovation, it provides coursework in a field that has seen a 90% growth in the past 10 years. It eliminates racial disparity because there are now only 6% of STEM jobs that are held by African Americans, so we need to see that number grow. It increases student achievement, enriching students over a 3-year continuum that includes mastery of lab equipment, student understanding of advanced concepts, and independent projects in year 3, with students earning college and high school credits. And this has been going on for 10 years at Perry. Improving the school culture, well, motivating students to succeed here at Perry affects the whole school, because teachers ask other students to come with the people that are in the biotech program, to go to project programs that are at the Science Center, etc. One recent biotech student was awarded this $20,000 scholarship, while another continued education to pursue a master's.
Thank you so much for your time. Don't forget your poster. Our speaker number 6 is Mr. Floyd McCray.
Good evening. It's really different up here. You guys ought to try this sometime. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a former board member. My name is Skip McCray. I wanted to speak. You've heard from some of my colleagues in Northside Leadership Conference's Education Committee. And I just want to show you guys that they have my support, not only for the programs that they want to do, but I will come in and do whatever I can. I think you guys remember I did some environmental stuff, didn't I? I would really love to see Perry an environmentally themed high school. It is an ideal location for it, right at the edge of Riverview Park. Of course, I'm in the edge of Riverview Park too, so I know the flora, the fauna, it's all there, it's all ready to study, and these kids' minds are open and they're ready to grab it all. So if we could start just a theme on that, the environmental theme would be fantastic, and we can build the biotech program, we can build other programs, and bring more children into the high school. That being said, I want to start on a personal note now. Mrs. Azuda, I understand you're leaving us. Isn't retirement fantastic? I want to thank you for everything you did when I was on the board, how you held us together, and you were a rock for us. Thank you. Mr. Eisler, I can't believe it. Do you know, when my Irish got up a little bit, this guy actually slowed me down. He kept me out of trouble more times than once. I want to thank you also for your service. I understand, Dr. Hall, you're up for re-election. Congratulations. And Mr. Bentley, good luck in your future as well. Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much. Our next 3 speakers are number 7, Eileen Gorey, number 8, Janine Solsti-Tosh, and number 9, Laura McCarthy.
I wanted to start off today by talking about my daughter. Lydia is a sweet and kind second grader at Minadeo who is full of infectious energy. She is bright, she is full of curiosity about the world and eager to learn. Lydia also worries about everything. Lydia is anxious about the fights on the bus, and although she is small and only 41 pounds, she feels she is personally responsible for the safety of a kindergartner on the bus. Lydia is also a child who struggles with transitions. As a family, we have to take care to keep routines consistent or she becomes anxious and irritable. Last year, we found ourselves in a position where she was unhappy at a small private school and she transferred to Minadeo in January. I cannot stress how important it is to provide stability and consistency for Lydia. She needs to have the same teacher in class the entire year, as well as the security of knowing that her teacher will never be reassigned to another school or another grade, not only this year, but for all future grades. Lydia is thriving this year. She is happy and confident. She feels she belongs to the community. However, I want you also to think about what happens to a community when they are stressed and how it affects our children. When the principal announced the lower than projected enrollment numbers at the PTO PSSC meeting last week, all faces in the room fell. The anxiety in the room was palpable, and then people started asking questions about how decisions are made about leveling. Studies show that children perform better on academic tasks when they have a positive relationship with their teacher, but we don't need studies to show us that. We all know that children form, and deep in our hearts, that young children form a strong attachment to their teachers, and if the teacher is pulled from the classroom, we know that will have deleterious effects on performance and behavior, and especially for children who have already suffered from trauma or repeated losses. Studies show that when teachers are stressed, children have decreased academic performance and increased disruptive behaviors. But we don't need studies to show us that. Whenever we put extra work on a teacher, such as having them take on a new class in the middle of the year, we know that affects our children's education and sense of security. Studies show that when a parent is anxious, their children are more likely to suffer from anxiety, depression, and exhibit disruptive behaviors. We don't need a study to show us that. And I can tell you, from my experience as a child psychiatrist, that even when we think we are having these discussions about our worries out of earshot of our children, they always know. Lydia loves Minadeo and yearns for consistency after a rocky educational start at other schools. As a child who worries about the future, she is already worrying where she will go to middle school. She came up with a plan last week to have our principal raise money to start a Minadeo middle school. While she will need to move on after 5th grade, I would like to promise her the safety and stability that she and her friends deserve right now. Please help us make our buses safer and end the practice of leveling.
Thank you so much. Speaker number 8, Jeannie Schulte. Speaker number 9, Laura McCarthy.
You may remember my testimony about issues around leveling and class size at prior public hearings. I am sad that this issue continues to come up, and that Minadeo may be facing leveling in not 1, but 3 grades. We were promised that this would not happen again. I want to help this practice to cease. I have an idea to stabilize population at feeder schools. It's not perfect, but I believe it's important to think outside the box here. Please listen to the following process. Step 1, stop leveling now. Once teachers are placed in a building for the year, leave them there. Teachers and paras may be added in a case-by-case basis in emergency situations. I know this is difficult, especially at feeder schools with the unpredictable enrollments as it stands now. However, removing teachers mid-year is simply too disruptive to everybody to justify any cost savings. At Minadeo, leveling has disrupted multiple grades, teaching schedules, teacher-student relationships, student friendships, classrooms, teacher belongings, parent-teacher conferences, and more. Removing teachers has the effect of reducing populations at leveled schools in the future and causing more leveling, a vicious and demoralizing cycle. How can my idea possibly work? On to my next point. Step 2, set an enrollment deadline very early in the school year. If people attempt to enroll in school after a certain deadline, they may only do so if there is space in the school with the existing teachers. If there is no space, the district will provide the enrolling family a list of schools with available space and provide transportation for that family. Place the family on a waiting list. If space opens up at the desired school during the current year, the family will be notified and have the opportunity to transfer if they wish. They will be guaranteed a spot at the desired school for the next school year. Step 3. Watch enrollment become more stable and predictable at feeder schools. See classroom behavior improve due to fewer population disruptions. Watch underpopulated schools grow their enrollment. Watch students experience a warm welcome into a small class when they must switch schools mid-year. Teachers will breathe a sigh of relief that they will not be uprooted. Please consider this very simple plan. We are extremely tired of having this conversation year after year, and I expect you are too. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I'm changing my tune in this speech and hope the district will change its approach to class size management at feeder schools. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Our next 3 speakers are Jean Nutini, 11, Molly May, and 12, Valerie Allman.
Okay. This testimony concerns communication about the selection process for early childhood education. I am the parent of a child currently on the waiting list for acceptance into the pre-K program at Minadeo. The concerns that I want to bring up this evening are about the lack of communication with parents who are applying to PPS schools. I submitted my application for the early childhood program as soon as it was available online, which I believe was in February of this year. On April 27th, I received a letter from the early childhood program that informed me that there were no openings at Minadeo and that my child had been placed on the wait list. I waited until July to contact Ruth Hendrick's office in order to inquire about my son's place on the waiting list. A woman working in the office told me that the wait list is always changing and that she couldn't tell me anything about the possibility of my son's acceptance that year. Once the school year began, I heard from fellow parents that the pre-K classrooms were half empty. You can imagine my frustration that I am being told that there is no place for my child, and yet the pre-K classrooms contain half as many students as are permitted. I made several attempts to contact Brenda Hall, the FSS for Minadeo, and James Saunders, the Family Services Coordinator. What I eventually found out was that my child was not being denied acceptance because of space, but rather because my household was considered to be over income, and there was no funding for families at this income level due to the budget impasse. I understand that the budget impasse is causing many problems for the state and especially for public education. My concern is not that my child hasn't been accepted, but rather that I have to jump through hoops to find out the reason why. The only information communicated to parents about the selection process on the early childhood program application form is, if there is greater interest in one location than space is available, a lottery will be held for those locations. This makes it sound like all children, regardless of income, have an equal chance of acceptance, which I know is not the case. Of course, low-income families should be given preference in the selection process, but exactly how is this done needs to be made more transparent. When there is vagueness and confusion about the selection process, it makes parents feel that the only way to get their child in is to pester the people in charge. This is frustrating on its own, but it's made even more aggravating when those people do not return phone calls and fully explain the situation. I'm sure there is an objective, rigorous procedure in place for determining who gets in and who doesn't. I'm just asking that this process be made clear to parents. As PPS touts, early childhood education is where the pathway to...
Thank you so much for your testimony. Speaker number 11, Ms. Molly May.
I'm the parent of 2 primary grade students at Minadeo. I've come here in the past to speak about our unacceptable bare-bones approach to music education. I've come to speak about developmental appropriateness. I've come here with song parody. I've come here with signs. I've been coming here for years, and I can't believe that I still have to do this. Now, I just want to know where my kids' friends are. We bought our home a little over 3 years ago with the understanding that our kids' feeder school would be Minadeo. And although I had a lot of interest in some of the full magnets in the East End, I was going to be happy with Minadeo. Most of the families in our neighborhood wouldn't even consider it. We live in Swiss Elm Park. Why? It's our third year there, and every year my kids have made friends, only to lose them to environmental charter school, Propel, private school, moves to the suburbs, or even some just to in-district magnets. It's our third year, and I've heard that every year in the past 6, there's been leveling of classrooms, every year with harmful consequences. Every time you level classes in the middle of the year, families leave. Every time kids who aren't given the help they need start to compromise the education of other kids, families leave. Families who stay informed and have the ability to make choices about their kids' education get tired of having their kids acclimate to new teachers and new noise levels and less attention. And those families are my friends, and they're my kids' friends. Those teachers who go from having 17 kids to having 27 and then 31 are excellent teachers, not machines. They will not teach the 31 kids the same way as 17 or 24, no matter how you pressure them with the rhetoric of effectiveness. The kids at the feeder schools are not less than. The kids who don't get into magnets and then decide that their feeder school isn't so bad deserve to be treated with respect. My children are very happy at school and love their teachers and have made friends, but my children will not be relegated to the lowest of the low around here because I want to send them to our nearby school. And it's unfair that they don't know where their friends are. I get that the magnet programs are your flagship schools, but your feeder schools need to remain viable. I get that you're dealing with numbers, but you can't forget that these numbers represent people. I understand that population does change, but planning optimistically may prevent people from leaving. One family here or there really does add up. So make it happen. Excellence for all, not just those who win a lottery.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Speaker number 12, Valerie Allman.
Hi again, everyone. I'm Valerie Allman. I'm a parent at Pittsburgh Slayer. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak. First and foremost, I wanted to thank you for giving us the opportunity to save a great school and embrace this new STEAM pathway. Seeing what has happened at other schools across the country this year has really opened my eyes to how important it is to have a school board that is not only willing to listen to our communities, but also embrace our ideas for what our children need. You have given us the opportunity to be heard and have worked with us to ensure that our kids are getting the high-quality education that we want for them. Because your willingness to give Woolslayer the opportunity to save ourselves, and because you have helped us to find a way to make the STEAM pathway, I am happy to announce that Woolslayer's enrollment is up for the first time in 3 years. From the end of last year to today, in less than 3 months, our enrollment has increased over 33%. We have seen an enormous jump in parent involvement already this year as well, over 1,000% in fact. For us, that is a significant growth, and it is a promising indication of what is to come. However, with this growth, we are facing some other issues. We have been so successful in attracting families that some of our class sizes are very large. In fact, we have 2 classrooms that currently have 31 students in them each. We did have more children in those classrooms, but some families have left those grades because the class sizes are too large. Having to wait 2 months before their children could be in an appropriate size class was too long for them. We have already done everything we can to provide a paraprofessional for these large classes and the rest of the school, but we don't have enough money to bring in more paraprofessionals to support those classrooms. Because our Title I budget was only allocated for 110 students, because that's all we had last year. And our other budgets can't pick up the slack. So prior to the beginning of the school year, we had a perspective of about 200 students coming to Woolslayer. Last week it was down to 170. Today it was down to 156 because we have lost families due to large class sizes. What I'm asking is that during right sizing, if you would consider allocating at least a paraprofessional for these large classes, if we're unable to split them. We've done the work for attracting families back to this district by providing the education that parents are looking for, But now we need to ensure that our teachers and students are properly supported. We need to make sure that our classrooms aren't overcrowded and that there are enough teachers and support staff to give these students what they need to succeed. I don't need to tell many of you how difficult it is to give individualized instruction to 31, 6, and 7-year-olds. But if you don't know, ask a first or second grade teacher. I know 2 that are going through it right now, and they could really use our support. This isn't just for Woolslayer. A lot of classrooms in this district are facing the same.
Thank you so much for coming out today. Our next 3 speakers are number 13, Christina DiPietro, number 14, Reverend Timothy Smith, and number 15, Dr. Johnson Martin.
Good evening. I'm Christina DiPietro, a lifelong resident of Hazelwood and chair of the Hazelwood Initiative Board of Directors. I'm here this evening to express to you the importance of keeping Gladstone School building in the ownership of the Hazelwood community. This school, up to its closing, served the residents of Hazelwood by providing education and space for community to share for recreation and life skills education. When it finally closed, the neighborhood experienced another blow. Seeing the building deteriorate before our eyes makes it even more difficult. The greater Hazelwood community is crossing the threshold into revitalization. Never before has my community received so much interest in it as it has in the last few years. This is a good thing. It is imperative the future of Gladstone School building be in the hearts, minds, and hands of the residents who live in Hazelwood. This is exactly what the partnership between Hazelwood Initiative and the Center of Life will do. In fact, we have already begun the process of community engagement. On Tuesday, September 8th, at a standing room only meeting, residents of Hazelwood agreed to move the process forward to work with Make It Right Foundation to be part of a creation of the redevelopment of Gladstone. The Hazelwood Initiative and Center of Life invited Make It Right to Hazelwood because of its reputation and the good work it did in New Orleans in the 9th Ward and Kansas City. Our philosophy is to engage the residents of the community in the creation of whatever it is to build a sustainable facility with LEED Platinum design. There are 3 more sessions planned to facilitate all other residents of Hazelwood to have the opportunity to dream and create their vision of this neighborhood historic school building. There is an unbreakable bond between the residents and the Gladstone building. The Hazelwood Initiative and Center of Life has submitted a proposal to purchase Gladstone School building. I ask that you give it every consideration, especially because it will keep this building in the ownership of the neighborhood. Both Center of Life and Hazelwood Initiative have a long history of service to the community. Hazelwood Initiative, as a community development organization, is committed to the revitalization of Greater Hazelwood. Our mission as a community-based community development corporation is to be community-driven, providing a shared, stronger voice for Greater Hazelwood by gathering input to build a sense of hope, harmony, and promise, and by supporting human, spiritual, and community development. This Gladstone series is exactly that mission. Center of Life is all about people, and together with the Hazelwood Initiative, we can make a difference.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Speaker number 14, Mr. Timothy Smith, Reverend Timothy Smith.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us. As Christine mentioned, we are partnering with the Hazelwood Initiative, with the Make It Right Foundation, with the Pittsburgh Community Reinvestment Group also to acquire the Gladstone site. In 2001, some of you, I don't know who was still here in 2001 when they made the decision to close Gladstone, but I was the young minister back then that had called the meeting at Gladstone with then John Thompson to try to get them to work with us to keep the services that were being provided in that building. And at the time, there were over 400 and some people being served through that building from the community from Tuesdays to Fridays every week. So the building was a huge community asset for us. We were serving people in that building ourselves. And, of course, that meeting, we didn't have the capacity back then to do it. But now what you have in front of you is some of the works of Center of Life. Our booklets, we've been around for 15 years now. We have raised funding throughout those years. We've built partnerships. We have both national and international recognition. We have awards nationally and internationally throughout the country and throughout other countries. We've had 50 Fulbright scholars come to visit us in Hazelwood from 50 different countries who would like to replicate what we're doing. But the first step for us is to redevelop the site that is on the Gladstone site. And we would hope that you would look at that proposal that we have put in and that you would consider doing this. The best hope, the best and brightest hope for the redevelopment of Gladstone is that that process be led by the community and by people who have already built a track record and already have relationships in the community, and we can do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Our next speaker is Dr. Johnson Martin.
Westinghouse High School has been a thorn in the district for some years. Now the issues surrounding the Wilkinsburg student transfer has added to the thorn bush. I will present a short idea that could possibly diminish the parent and student concerns around conflict and academic performance. This will be my third idea for Westinghouse. 1, make the school the complete technical course high school with an academic college course model. Highlight the concept incessantly. Change the schedule to accommodate the rigorous academic and necessary technical courses. My calculations indicate that the school would have no greater than 650 students. That's extremely small for a combined high school, middle school population. Presently, with Westinghouse at 435 and Wilkinsburg at 217, that allows for a creative course schedule. A schedule could look something like this. All students must take at least 4 technical courses, either as electives or as a major. All students must take college prep courses. No other courses should be offered. Make it a flex scheduling where the Westinghouse students start at 7:30 and end at 2:30. The Wilkinsburg students will start at 9:30 and end at 4:15. The school is large and can accommodate around 1,000 students, so there is lots of unused space. My suggestion would be to partition the school into 2 sections, one for the 200-plus Wilkinsburg students and a section for the middle school students. I would think that the middle school would not have a large population, perhaps around 100 students. The major problems may be with the high school population. So the 150 to 200 Wilkinsburg students would be taking most of their technical courses at AM, while the Westinghouse students are in AM academic courses. The reverse occurs after lunch, so that coursework is divided equally. Because the population is very small, this schedule is not difficult. Even block scheduling would help. 3, change the name of the school. Westinghouse should not be the name. It has an image that we all know causes problems.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I would like to get a copy of that so we can make sure that the board members see it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Our next 3 speakers will be number 16, Anna Sneed, number 17, Dwayne Murray, and number 18, Joanna Sikowitz.
Good evening. Last year, after a painful discernment process, my husband and I decided that our son Henry would not be returning to Pittsburgh Minadeo this fall. Our decision-making process involved a lengthy struggle with the high value we place on social justice, diversity, and community building on the one hand, and our child's well-being on the other. In the end, we determined that Henry's and indeed our entire family's educational needs and emotional well-being were at risk if we continued to attend Pittsburgh Minadeo. I want to emphasize that many factors contributed to our conclusion. An unresponsive principal who we felt we could not trust, a general lack of communication about almost everything, encounters with BOE administrators that felt unhelpful and condescending, a school culture that was not up to the admittedly difficult task of building community across lines of social and cultural differences, and that involved too much of the things we did not want, from unresolved, disruptive, and even violent classroom behavior to excessive in-school TV watching, and less of what we did want, which was a focus on learning. But among the major factors that contributed to our determination to withdraw Henry from Pittsburgh Minadeo was mid-year leveling. The effects that I observed at Minadeo were twofold. First, teachers were clearly unhappy and unable to cope with the higher class sizes and disruptions to relationships. Excellent teachers were forced to become mere crowd control experts. Second, there was a dramatic increase in my son's class size. This was particularly heartbreaking as fluctuations in enrollment at Minadeo meant that the leveled first grade regained numbers in a matter of days. The classroom grew to the point where a paraprofessional was required. The para was supposed to support the now bursting first grade classrooms, but the degree of chaos throughout Minadeo did not allow him to be present to the first grade only. He was frequently pulled from one place to another to deal with issues across the school. Leveling had supposedly been unavoidable because of the rules, and the BOE was inflexible in support of those rules. But the same rules were not so important once our aide needed to devote himself to first grade, even though he had been hired precisely to rectify the blatant mistake made by the BOE when it leveled Minadeo in the first place. So I testify tonight as a parent who had had enough. My son now attends St. Bede School, who, despite being a social ethicist with a demonstrated commitment to social justice and community development, we removed our child from PPS because we determined that we could not continue.
Thank you so much. We have your written testimony. Speaker number 17.
Good evening, all. My name is Dwayne Murray. I'm the chair of planning for Hazelwood Initiative and a long-term resident of Hazelwood. In addition, I attended Gladstone High School as a child. I stand in support of Center of Life and Hazelwood Initiative for the purchase of Gladstone High School. I would like to see the development driven by the community and not the developer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Speaker number 18.
Good evening, my name is Joanna Sekevich, and I have 2 children in Pittsburgh Public Schools. I am here tonight as my goal is to be an involved parent, and because I believe that our feedback as parents is crucial as well as for the public schools' growth as for the parent-school community. I would like to speak about the experience I had with the Conroy Early Childhood Center. After submitting the application for my daughter, I did not receive any correspondence confirming her registration, even though I was supposed to get a letter within 2 weeks. In the following weeks, I have made multiple phone calls to the office inquiring about the status of the application. It was extremely difficult to reach anyone at the office. The main office number phone calls would go to Ruth Handler's voicemail, but as I later found out, Ms. Handler was on a sick leave. At some point, I was able to reach a person at the main office number, and I was told that my daughter has been accepted to the Minnedale program and that I should expect a letter in the following weeks with the confirmation. After this phone call conversation, I have canceled all the other preschool arrangements for my daughter. Once again, the confirmation letter did not come, and I have made multiple attempts again to contact the office. My phone calls have not been returned. So on the Monday the school started, I took my daughter to school only to find out that she was not on any of the lists for the classrooms. At that point, I drove to the Conroy Center, and I was told that she was on the waiting list. This kind of lack of communication and misinformation is unacceptable and incompetent, so please do something to improve it. The matter has been resolved in our favor thanks to the involvement of the program's director, Ms. Barone, but my child was able to get into the program because I am a tuition-paying parent. There are 11 children in my daughter's classroom. It seems like the classes are not filled. We would like to know why, and why the other children remain on the waiting list, all the while the classrooms are half empty. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next three speakers are number 19, Renna Fuller, number 20, Ron Horton, and number 21, David Bringen. Speaker number 19.
Good evening. My name is Renee Fuller. First, let me thank you for giving the Hazelwood Initiative the opportunity to buy the former Bergwin School building. As you know, we did exactly what we said we would do with the building by bringing a school back to our neighborhood for the children. We are now asking you to let us buy the Gladstone School building. We are purposely trying to build up our community through development, education, recreation, and spirituality by letting the Center of Life and the Hazelwood Initiative, in collaboration with the Make It Right Foundation, buy the Gladstone building. You will give the Glen Hazel, Glenwood, Hazelwood community the opportunity to have what we need and what we want in our community. So please give the residents of Hazelwood the opportunity to build up our community by selling the Gladstone building to the Center of Life, the Hazelwood Initiative, and the Make It Right Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Speaker number 20, Mr. Ron Horton.
I am here today in my role as Associate Director of Music, Art, and Health for the Center of Life. Our office is located across the street from the Gladstone site. The loss of Gladstone had a great impact on the community, as it would be the case for any community that loses an institution as important as a school. Although we can't affect the past, we are now faced with a wonderful opportunity as we consider the future use of the Gladstone building. By making Gladstone a hub for housing and community activity, we'll be able to create opportunities and strengthen resources that are currently available in this neighborhood. Establishing affordable housing on this site would be a boon to the community and to the people who would live there. For people who already live in the neighborhood, providing new affordable housing would help to provide stability and pride. Because of its proximity to downtown, it will also attract new people and families into Hazelwood. Another reason this would be such an important addition to Hazelwood is because it would provide a much-needed activity space. Center of Life is currently providing a large number of services, but having a dedicated facility with classrooms, music rehearsal space, and athletic facilities would allow further growth and be beneficial to us in continuing to meet the needs of the community. Center of Life has basketball teams, facilitates supervised after-school play, provides education in jazz and hip-hop, and tutoring activities spread through at least 5 locations. Our activities and performances occur throughout the year and are part of the fabric of Hazelwood. If Gladstone were converted for community use, this would allow Center of Life to centralize its activities and serve residents much more efficiently. The ability to develop the Gladstone site would have a tremendous benefit that would be felt throughout the community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Speaker number 21, Mr. David Bringen.
Good evening. My name is Dave Bringen. I'm a community organizer for Lawrenceville United's Pep Rally program. I'm not a parent. as the sheet says. Another district is currently looking at class sizes across the district as they get settled to determine where there is need for additional staff. I'm here on behalf of Woolsar parents to ask that as you make these decisions, additional staff be given to Woolsar Elementary for the primary grades, which have class sizes as large as 29 and 30 right now. While class sizes may appear to be just numbers, this is an issue that teachers and parents have continued to stress how strongly they feel about it. I've also seen that for many parents, it's a defining factor in their school decisions. I'm thinking of a new parent to Woolsar Elementary who heard about the new STEAM program and decided to give it a shot. While she was happy with the school, she couldn't bear the idea of her child being in a classroom with 29 other students with just one paraprofessional spread across all the grades. And given the uncertainty if another paraprofessional or teacher would be hired, she decided to act before it became too late, and she took her child out of the PPS school that she wanted to attend. I'm thinking of another parent at Woolsar whose child with special needs had to repeat second grade because he wasn't getting enough individual support at the last school he attended. Hoping that Woolsar's small school size would help him get the support he needed, now she's distraught to learn that he could be facing another year of not getting adequate individual support and looking for other school options. I'm thinking of the parent of a kindergarten student at Woolsar who also decided to take a chance on Woolsar, at my recommendation, whose daughter has epilepsy. A lifetime of seizures and medication has caused her to have some behavior and learning challenges related to her neurology, but her progress in Pittsburgh Public Schools pre-K program showed that with the proper support, she could do well and make great strides. Her IEP calls for a paraprofessional, but again, the only paraprofessional at the school is split between 6 other classes that also need the support. I know the beginning of the year is a turbulent time in terms of class sizes getting sorted out and stabilized. As someone who's been very actively involved in Ready Freddy activities at Arsenal and Woolsar to get kids enrolled on time, I know how difficult it can be to make projections, how much mobility there can be even in a few months, and how often families enroll after the deadline or even after the first day of school. This makes it extremely challenging to plan for the adequate amount of staff to start the school year at each building and requires some time to shuffle staff around. Yet families are often kept in the dark about this process and at what specific numbers their children's classroom will receive additional support, which makes it very difficult for them to stomach those first chaotic weeks, especially if they're starting a new school. We need a more transparent and clear process for when additional staff, paraprofessionals, or teachers are going to be made available to schools that need them. After expressing our concerns about similarly large classrooms at Arsenal last year, we were delighted to hear that the district had worked with the school to create a plan of action for bringing additional staff on when classroom sizes got to specific numbers. This eased everyone's mind, knowing that a plan was in place and how it would work at very specific numbers. I know that the district has a plan, is working through it right now, and I would encourage the district to share it with.
Thank you so much for your time. Our next 3 speakers are number 22, Larry Chiptak, number 23, Alex Bonner, and number 24, Fran Bernatesh. Thank you, sorry. Can you push the button, please?
Hi, I'm Larry Chiptak with Wagamela Holdings. We too are proposing to purchase a Gladstone school. Ms. DiPietro characterized it as the heart, mind, and hands of Hazelwood. We'd like it to keep it the same way and bring it back not only to its glory, but further extend the role of the community in that school. It's currently a non-utilized asset in the community. It's sat vacant for 12 years. We are a social enterprise. We're looking to take that school and turn it into a community center and a for-profit enterprise while maximizing environmental sustainability. We're going to use solar power, top to bottom green building design, LEED Platinum certification, and the whole 9 yards. We want this campus, and we talk of it as being a campus, as being somewhere that people from outside of Pittsburgh, anywhere in Pittsburgh that wants to learn about green buildings would come utilize this as a model. Social inclusion, we're looking to deeply embed. It's inherent to the model of a social enterprise to deeply embed the community before you make any kind of move. So our success is contingent on the community's inclusion and success in this venture, or it's just simply not going to fly. So we're open to all community groups. We're going to make space available to the community groups that don't have it or need a centralized space. As far as other community assets, we're going to renovate the the 2 gymnasiums that are in there and make that available to community groups. We're going to take the swimming pool, which is actually in half decent shape. We're going to renovate that, make that available to the community residents. We're going to offer yoga. We're having the health center. We're going to put a Montessori daycare center in there. So we see a lot of assets that we can bring to the community and a lot of assets the community can bring. Working in conjunction can serve the needs of the area to spur economic development while taking care of the social, cultural, and spiritual needs of the community. We're going to have a high-tech conference center with a meeting room. Everything's state-of-the-art. There's going to be a greenhouse that's going to go along the top of the building. We're going to have a jobs training program in greenhouse management. We're going to teach urban farming. We're going to want people to be on that campus day in, day out. It's an asset of the community. We not only want to keep it as an asset to the community, but we want to deeply involve all community members and groups into this. I think there's some misconception about what we're proposing to do. We look forward to a general forum where everybody in the community, and not just the special interest groups within the community, get a chance that we can put our proposal on the table. Other groups can put their proposals on the table. We ask that the school board shelf selling this building for the time being, because 9 out of 10 people that we talk to say they want jobs, not more housing. 1,700 vacant properties in the community, and we think that Gladstone can be used to, again, be the epicenter of Hazelwood. We have great plans for the building. We welcome input. We look forward to meeting all the members of the.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you. Speaker number 23. Thank you so much.
Minden szettnek maga felé fordul a keze. This is my grandma's special saying in Hungarian, which means every saint's hands eventually turns toward themselves. My name is Alexander Józsa Badner, and I am a president of the Greater Hazelwood Development Inc., owner of Józsa Corner Hungarian Restaurant in AJB Enterprises, a 12,000 square foot area business building called AJB Professional Arts Building. In addition to having special interest groups with hidden agendas in Hazelwood, there has been long been a lack of consensus between these groups, which have resulted in stagnation in the community and economic development and desperately needed priorities. We now are being presented with an opportunity to have a world-class technology incubator and campus that will build its business model around Hazelwood's social and cultural and economic needs. This type of development is long overdue. Yes, we need affordable housing, but there are nearly 2,000 properties in Hazelwood ripe to develop. Given its size and location, Gladstone is a perfect epicenter for economic development, job training, community and cultural involvement. However, the idea of using Gladstone for new affordable housing is absurd, considering the proposed apartments will create no jobs, educational opportunities, or job training. Guagamela Holdings has presented a fresh, sound proposal for the development of Gladstone that takes into account all community needs, from social and economic to cultural and civic. Develop the abandoned properties, and let's use Gladstone School for creating jobs, stimulate economic developments, and breathe new life into the community that is too long been neglected. This full package long-range proposal includes foresights and preparations for lacking in other proposals. Hazelwood fallen for too many quick and dirty and band-aid resolutions. Our future should not be driven by mediocrities. If you wait for all the local community organizations to reach the consensus about Gladstone, it will never happen. I'd like to know what the community itself thinks. I recommend through a public forum which is transparent, inclusive, and to all parties interested in Gladstone. Nothing happens till you make it happen. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you so much for your time. Speaker number 24, Fran Bernatosh.
Good evening. My name is Fran Bertnaschi. I'm here to speak in favor of the Hazelwood Initiative and Center of Life purchase of the Gladstone School building. I live on Hazelwood Avenue, about a block from the building. I've been there for 28 years. And I really want to address the issue of community involvement and community ownership of this property. The Hazelwood Initiative has a 15-year history of being active and a place where discussions and planning activities have occurred that have engaged the entire Hazelwood community. We go back to partnering with the Murphy administration and LTV Steel whenever they were doing a remediation of the former LTV site. We acted as the community advocate for that process. A couple of years later, we partnered with then Councilman Bob O'Connor, providing funds for a planning process that to look at what would happen on then it was called the Almano site whenever the foundations purchased it. A couple of years later, there was a proposal by the Turnpike Commission to build the Monfayette Expressway through Hazelwood. I'm sure some of you are familiar with that project. That never happened, but the Hazelwood Initiative was the community spokesperson for a series of meetings, partnering again with the City Planning Department and the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission to alert the residents of Hazelwood to the project, how it would affect the community. So we have a long history of being involved in the community and being an advocate for the entire community and being a forum for the people in the community to hear about issues of planning and issues of concern in the neighborhood. And so I think at this point, the only option in terms of keeping the Gladstone School in the hands of the community is through the sale of it to the Hazelwood Initiative and Center of Life. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next three speakers are number 25, Mr. Majestic Lane, number 26, Robert Cobett, and number 27, Carrie Mazzarero.
Good evening. My name is Majestic Lane. I'm the Director of Community External Relations and Member Engagement for Pittsburgh Community Reinvestment Group. Pittsburgh Community Reinvestment Group is a coalition of community leaders working for economic justice and revitalization for the Pittsburgh region. And I'm here tonight to let everyone know that we are a supporting partner of the Hazelwood Initiative and Center of Life idea for the Gladstone School. Of course, PCRG brings years of development capacity and support, also relationships with state, local, and federal resources in order to make this a reality. We acknowledge that Center of Life and Hazelwood Initiative have been engaged in very robust community engagement and will continue to, and we will be supportive of them in that going forward. Also, it should be noted that this initiative has the support of the councilman from the area as well as other local leaders. And besides all that, I think it's important when we're talking about development and what will happen and having affordable housing and looking at where we are right now in our city, and as our city is rapidly changing, and as it's evolving community-driven development, it's going to be more important than ever. It's going to be more important that people in communities have a voice in what happens further as something like Almano happens, and there will be great and momentous change once that happens and markets start to activate. So it's important that the community is at the table with these things, has a place in it, and that people have the ability to stay in the neighborhoods that they've been in and get resources as more come into the communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Speaker number 26.
Good evening. My name is Bob Cobett. I'm president of the Cobett Collaborative. My company works in sustainable design development, environmental education, and environmental stewardship in 12 countries on 5 continents. I was really looking forward to retirement until Francis Pitt called me and asked me to be involved in the Gladstone project that Gaugamela Holdings is developing. You know, I could stand up here as a sustainability consultant and talk about green design and sustainability tenants and all the rest, but there's a long list of those, and we all know what they are. 6 months ago, when Francis asked me to join the team, we had conversations about how this could not be done unless it was done for the community. What I want to use my time for tonight is simply address some things I think could enrich and inform the process that we've all been talking about up here. Never once in the time I've been with Francis has we ever had any design or intentions on making this a private development or wrenching it out of Hazelwood or taking it away from people. Quite the opposite. From day one, it's been our intention to add our commercial and private sector financial viability to what we know will be an outstanding housing development if it's done in conjunction with Make It Right. And I want to add a note on a very happy coincidence in terms of process and working together and enriching the entire thing. When I volunteered after Katrina in New Orleans for 3 weeks, shoveling mud out of schools and worked with Tulane students and refurbishing the schools in New Orleans, I actually overlapped work that the Make It Right Foundation was doing. We met Brad Pitt. We talked about what we were doing in other countries in Africa and all the rest. From day one, I can assure you, if Francis Pitt would have told me that we were going to do anything other than what the community wanted to do, I wouldn't have agreed to participate. We don't want to run the show, we don't want to lead the train, but we believe we have a very viable commercial interest that can complement what you want to do with Tim Dugan and Make It Right. And I believe if you give our proposal a fair consideration, you'll see how closely it resonates with what Make It Right wants to do as a community-oriented, shared, win-win-win development venture that you can lead and prosper from and benefit even more if we consider the financial viability that Gaugamela Holdings can potentially bring. It's my understanding that you're supported in part by the Heinz Endowments. I've done several projects in the Pittsburgh region they've supported before, and they have a very interesting tenet in their saying, and that is the combination of environmental stewardship and economic viability. And we believe if you consider our projects fairly, you will see how closely we resonate not only what you and the Make It Right Foundation wants to do, but what we can bring to the mix. And that addresses everything from K-12 and the STEM and the other considerations I've heard other speakers say tonight, and how we can partner with K-12. For what it's worth.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. We appreciate you. Thank you. Speaker number 27.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Mazzaferro. I am currently the Plant Growth Facility Manager at the University of Pittsburgh, and I've been there for about the last year and a half. A little bit about my background. I hold a bachelor's degree from Penn State University in horticulture and a master's of horticulture from Michigan State University, where my work was basically on whole plant physiology and development. Prior to working at the University of Pittsburgh, I spent 10 years in the private sector, growing anything from orchids to corn in the largest agribusinesses in the world. I've had the privilege of working at the university extension position for West Virginia State University and WVU in working with diverse home horticulture programs for Kanawha County, Master Gardener, Ag in the Classroom, and Habitat for Humanity, providing vocational and education training for all of those programs. Currently, for the University of Pittsburgh, I manage 7 rooftop greenhouses found on the Clapp-Langley-Crawford complex just around the corner from here. They also have several growth chambers that I'm in charge of. In addition, I teach advanced horticulture classes for Phipps Conservatory for those students enrolled in their horticultural sustainable programs. Given the opportunity for Gaugamela Holdings to acquire the Gladstone Middle School, a state-of-the-art greenhouse would be built on the rooftop of the northwest building. The creation of these greenhouses, along with a substantial amount of classroom spaces that are currently there, would provide excellent opportunity for vocational training. In addition to the vocational training, it would create jobs for a multitude of skill levels, from anything from a high school level to a PhD level, with these groups interacting in one creative, open environment. Training in sustainable horticulture practices, plant care, greenhouse management, and maintenance would be available. There would also be opportunities for high school summer jobs and numerous internships that would support the local education institutes, such as Bidwell's Horticulture Technology and University of Pitt students in their biology program. Additional opportunity for certified skilled trades, such as electricians, plumbers, and engineers, would also require for the maintenance to maintain the technology of the greenhouses and other campuses. Thank you for your time and good evening.
Thank you so much. Our next two speakers are number 28, Mr. Latul Love, number 29, Francis Pitt. Your mic is on.
Good evening. My name is Latul Love, Chairman of the Greater Hazelwood African American Forum and 27-year resident of the Greater Hazelwood community. I'm here, you know, sometimes that we know what you hear all the time is not always what is actuality. And some things I heard up here in terms of who represent Hazelwood is not exactly right. But what I'm not here today to bash any group in Hazelwood. What I'm here to say to you is we have a choice, and you are the person who can help us make that choice. Housing, which we don't need, which we have 1,701 public housing vacant properties in Hazelwood, that if we want to expand housing and the groups want to work in housing, they should be doing that. Housing or jobs, vocational training will help curb the crime rate, help the children and young people in our community grow. Full-time babysitting availability will help single mothers and other parents in our community to gain full-time employment and have something. So $800 million worth of projects going on in Hazelwood, and all of it's brick and mortar, and none of it's directed to the people who live there, including the organization who wants to buy this school. We need to have a program, and we need your help like it was when we came to you for Bergwin. We came to you, the residents, not one organization, to put Bergwin School in the hands of Hazelwood Initiative, which we supported for our children, not for one organization. And we come to you now in the community to say to you, we need your help. We need your consideration. We want you to understand that there's nothing going on but gentrification and self-willed things going on in Hazelwood that the people in Hazelwood, the residents, are not directly benefiting from. Housing, jobs, growth. You know the deal. I don't need to continue. I did not follow what I gave you. You have a list of what I want to say. But I'm just paraphrasing. And we want to try to save the lives of our children. We have to. Y'all know what's going on all over the city of Pittsburgh. Now, what's more important? Building build housing complexes that we don't need, or providing direct services and jobs and other services to people to build about sustainability in our community. It's simple as that. And the people who represent us are not always the people you hear. Come to the community. Set a forum up, please. You set a forum up. And let's hear from the people, the residents of the community, and put it out to the people in Hazelwood. Do you want housing or do you want jobs? And I'll tell you right now, you know what the answer is going to be. We want vocational training. We want jobs. We want opportunity to one day to own our own homes. And the only way we're going to do that is by having jobs and becoming self-sufficient. That's the things that we're looking for out of the Gladstone School.
Thank you so much for coming out today. Speaker number 29, Mr. Pitts.
Hello. First, I'd like to thank everyone who came out tonight in support of our proposal, with a special thanks to Mr. Love and the Greater Hazelwood African American Forum, as they were the first group to formally invite us to speak. They were the first to embrace our ideas, and they have been a vocal advocate ever since. So, thank you, Mr. Love. I addressed this board last month and said that we were about to share our vision with the community. Well, we did, and here are the results. There are not many businesses that are currently operating in Hazelwood, but of the ones that are there, 12 have declared their support for our proposal. Dozens of kids have said that they want to see the kind of resources and opportunities that our project would offer. Hundreds of residents have now petitioned this board, and their message is clear. They want action. These people know that another apartment complex is not going to solve the problems in their community. It's just not. Housing, sure, that would be a step in the right direction. It's better than a vacant building. But it is not transformative. Housing, by its very nature, is limited in its economic impact. A technology incubator, on the other hand, by its very nature, is unlimited. It is unlimited in its potential impact on the community. This is the golden age of entrepreneurship. This is a time when a couple of kids and a big idea can change the world. These are exciting times. We want to see the former Gladstone Middle School offer support to young entrepreneurs because this is transformative. We can make Hazelwood a hub for entrepreneurship. Uber and Airbnb, they started out as nothing but ideas, and today they have multi-billion-dollar valuations. With the right infrastructure, we can build the next generation of great startups companies right here in Pittsburgh, right here in Hazelwood. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Speaker number 8, Ms. Janine Schulte. Mr. Sumter, this concludes tonight's testimony.
Thank you, Mrs. Fairbree Jones. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out and being engaged with the Pittsburgh Public School District, especially those who spoke. I'd ask that you please stay engaged with the district, and again, have a safe travel home. This public hearing is now adjourned.